Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. And that is my co-host, Tyson Gentry, coming to you from Missoula, Montana. Tyson, we're all about the NBA draft today. We're giving our reactions. We're giving our analysis. We're going to talk about every single pick in the lottery, so 1 through 14. Give some snippets on that. Any other notable first-round picks that kind of caught our eye, we think are good fits, whatever the case may be, we're going to discuss as well. And then we're going to close with the biggest surprises of the night as well. And Tyson, it wouldn't be an NBA draft without an overhyped, everybody's excited about prospect. And this guy this year is Victor Wembanyama. And I think the hype is real in some point. He looks like a generational guy.
Well, I don't even know if overhyped is right because maybe we're under on this guy, as ridiculous as it is to say. Like, if he is what people say he is, then there is no amount of hype that can get you right. And I do want to point out before we get too deep into this that we're not talking like all the trades that just happened, like the Chris Paul, the Warriors thing and all that stuff. That's going to come out in a later episode. So this is like strictly draft talk here. So if you're wondering why we don't have that, that'll be out for you early next week. But yeah, dude, like, not often that a 7'5" shot blocking, shot creator that can shoot like runaway threes like Steph just kind of appears. And there was 0 seconds from April until now that this guy was 100% going to go number one. Like, it didn't even flip back and forth once, which is pretty rare. And it was before April, but that's really when people start locking in on the NBA draft.
Yeah, and Victor Wembanyama is a generational talent. Like, when you look at what he can do, there's not many people that size in the history of this world that is that fluid.
That's a crazy thing to think about, because that's the right way to say that. Like, in the history of the world.
Right, he's 7 foot. I think he actually said his real height 7'3". They list him at 7'5".
That's to get
propping that up.
That's to get girls.
Yes, exactly. But 7'4" shooter, 19 years old. The way he's coming in, I think but put the basketball aside, I actually think he's going to be really good, and it's because of his attitude. Like, the thing that blew me away with him recently were his interviews. Like, he's like, I put pressure on myself. Nobody's going to put pressure on me because I expect so much for myself. Seems like he has a level head on his shoulders. And, when you're about to become like one of the most famous people in the world, like, you kind of need that, and this guy is already being propped up like he's the next one. And for him to kind of be at this point in time immune to that in a way, like, we got to see if that translates to his game. But that's a good step in the right direction.
You know who he sounds like? You're talking about his interviews and stuff. He sounds like a San Antonio Spur.
Oh, yeah.
Like, already.
Absolutely.
I think people were a little bit surprised to hear his voice for the first time. That was fun. But, like, the guy does every single thing you could want on the court. He's single-handedly going to get Greg Popovich 3 extra years out of his career because Pop's not going to let somebody else get their hands on this kid before the end of his rookie contract, I don't think. Dude, if this goes well, I mean, they could be, if he's as good as people say he is, this is like a borderline playing team anyways, which is ridiculous because this is not a very good roster.
This is one of the worst rosters. They had one of the worst records. That's why they won the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. So he can be a game changer as soon as he steps foot in this league. We got to see. The body's not quite there yet. 230 pounds. He looks like a stick if you're watching him on the coverage. Little neck. I like this kid. I'm rooting for him. Just the way he carries himself, I'm rooting for him. So we'll see. I don't know how much summer league we're going to see of him, but I'm excited.
Over under 3 months before irrational Wemby hate starts.
I'll give him more. It's because he's such a nice kid. You know what I mean? I think people are going to naturally root for him. So I think
he's got the language barrier working in effect.
Exactly. I think he's so French, dude. His family on the interview, they're so French. I was dying laughing. It was hilarious. But I'm rooting for him, man. I want to see him play against the American style basketball. Like, the FIBA rules, the NBA rules. It's going to be different.
Oh, it's whatever happens, his career is going to be fun.
So where the draft started, though, was the second overall pick. Like Tyson mentioned, we knew Wembanyama was going to go 1. Now, the Hornets it seemed like they were back and forth between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson. Then, Woj throws out, hey, it's going to be Brandon Miller. And eventually the Hornets did select Brandon Miller, number 2. We both think Scoot is a better prospect. Brandon Miller is probably a better fit for this roster. What do you think about taking fit over talent, I guess, for lack of a better term?
I think, to be honest with you, like, we're both Scoot guys, but like, it's not the gap that people want to make it out to be. Like, Brandon Miller is super good and he fits the roster, like you mentioned, but like, it's the modern NBA, right? So what do teams want? They want 6'8", shot makers, 3-point shooters, functional handles, good defense, and you find it all in one guy here. And we would have loved to watch Scoot and LaMelo play basketball together, but like this is going to be just fine. I've never seen, it's been since Porzingis since I've seen a fan base so pissed off, pretty much knowing the guy they were going to get hours before the draft started. Like they panned to him, they booed. They panned to him, they booed, and then they made the selection and everyone was shocked.
I think this is going to be a really good fit. I love Brandon Miller's game. I really do. I watched him play. I'm not kidding. 3 games at Alabama. I'm like, this kid's the best player in college basketball.
He's dynamic.
Like he was just that dynamic, for the lack of a better term. Is he a great athlete overall? No. What he is a modern day wing, a lights out shooter, 6'9" with a 6'11" wingspan. He's gonna be able to defend. Like when he grows into his body, like he's still thin, but he has like the frame. I think he's gonna probably get up to 215, 220 just when he grows into his body, and he's gonna be a formidable player. And pairing him, if LaMelo can stay healthy, that's your 1-2 on the wing right there, your guard wing attack. I really like this pick for the Hornets. Now, I understand what people say. Well, you can't really pass up on Scoot Henderson. The problem with Scoot, and we'll get into it a little bit, is the shooting. And so if you have a guy in this modern NBA who has the size on the wing, pairs with your current superstar or going to be eventually superstar in LaMelo Ball, I think it was really hard for the Hornets to pass up.
Well, Brandon Miller was horrible in the NCAA tournament.
He was, yes.
Which it will be good because he's not going to play postseason basketball for the Hornets for quite a while.
Well, yeah, we got to see. It's going to be bad. It is going to be bad.
It's going to be fun, though. They're a league pass team for sure.
I was going to say it's going to be fun because if you look at it, really probably the oldest, most impactful player right now in the rotation is Terry Rozier. I mean, you got Mark Williams, who's going to be your center, young guy who was drafted last year, and I have Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. That's your core, really. So I agree. I mean, they're not for right now. Like this is a play for the future.
Yep.
And so let's talk about Scoot, Tyson, because he goes number 3. Many people expected potentially this pick would be traded, but the Blazers get what many look as a generational guard in Scoot Henderson. Now, if you're not familiar with him, it's because he played in the G League, played for the G League Unite. He comes in. Now, he's 6'2", with 6'9" wingspan, freaky athlete. Like he's a highlight reel waiting to happen. Really good head on his shoulders. And if you don't know much about him, he's kind of like this prodigy kid who's been a basketball lifer his entire life. And I think, I'm not going to lie to you here, Tyson, this is a really good pick for the Blazers. I think you can pair him with Damian Lillard. I know people are like, well, Dame's gone for sure. I think you maybe even use the other pieces around like Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe from last year to bring in another guy, and you keep Scoot Henderson with Dame Lillard.
It'll be interesting. Scoot has very seldom in his entire life even been on a court with somebody as good as him or better. Like he played Wemby twice. But like the Thompson twins and everybody from the G League is good. But this dude is basically Jalen Green on steroids. When you watch the G League, this is when you watch him, you get like Derrick Rose vibes or like young Russell Westbrook vibes. There is not a player in the draft that is more competitive than Scoot Henderson. Just from like watching him play, this dude is Colin Sexton with like better basketball skill, and that might not sound like a ton. Colin Sexton was pretty close to being a really good player. Got hurt, and then now he's kind of like he's the fictional core piece. When teams put their core in quotes, he seems to always be added for some reason. He's that guy. But like whether they keep Lillard or not, Scoot Henderson is either going to be very enticing if they want to make the run at Bam Adebayo, which is the rumor, or if they want to stand pat and move kind of into this next era. This is a butts in the seats pick. This is a potential. Portland drafts good guards, man.
They do.
There's potential for this one to be the next in line.
And we know Scoot Henderson worked out with the Pelicans. Pelicans talked with him. Is there a move coming for a Zion Williamson or a Brandon Ingram? And maybe Scoot Henderson eventually goes down to the Pelicans. That's something to keep an eye on as well. But as it stands right now, assuming that Scoot Henderson is staying in Portland, I think this is a good pick to pair with Damian Lillard because Tyson Scoot can't shoot. That's the biggest thing about him right now. Like everybody's talking about like, oh, this guy's generational. He's great. You got to be able to shoot if you're a guard in this game. Or it's not the old days. Like if he's Derrick Rose would not be the same player when he first stepped on the court in the Bulls uniform as he would be in today's game because of the style of defense. You have to be able to knock shots down if you're a guard. So that's the one thing you have to keep an eye on with him. But if he's alongside Damian Lillard, Tyson, what do you know? The floor's pretty spaced.
Him and Anthony Simons is a damn slam ball team. So this is going to be fun.
Oh, my gosh. Ooh, absolutely. And speaking of slam ball teams here, the Rockets get Ausar Thompson, who may be the best athlete in this entire draft when it's all said and done. And he may turn into the best athlete in the entire league. He's that freaky, from Overtime Elite. So if you're like, who is this? Overtime Elite is like the G League Ignite. It's a new league for players coming out of high school, developmental league. And listen, we don't know much about him. He's 20 years old, playing against some younger guys in that league. But what we do know is he's a freak athlete, 6'6", 7-foot wingspan, super bouncy. The questions with him, even more than Scoot, is the shooting.
Well, the Rockets kind of got screwed here. I'm going to be honest. Like, this is the right pick. I think he was the best player left on the board. But how many pogo sticks can one team draft that can't really shoot? Like, he's going to be a pass off ball on defense. He's going to be a shot creator for others on offense. But it feels a little bit redundant, basically based on their roster. There's like 50-50 because there's not going to be enough shots to go around for him to really show us his shooting prowess, I don't think, in year one. But that's also a detriment because we're going to need to see improvement. But if this hits, like, this is, forget a home run, this is a grand slam. Like, right now, he's probably a top 10 athlete in the NBA. And top 10 might be conservative.
Ime Udoka, now the new head coach of the Rockets, has done a great job when he was with the Boston Celtics of developing wings and Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. So that's a good spot, I think, for him to land. Somebody like Udoka kind of can teach him the game, is a younger coach himself, and then can kind of grow Amen into this role of being an NBA player. And like you said, he's going to be a creator. Like that was his role on his team in Overtime Elite. Like, he was a bigger guard, a bigger ball handler. And so if he creates shots for others, I mean, there's plenty of players on that team in the Houston Rockets who want to get shots up. So he can kind of grow into getting his own shot eventually at the NBA level. Like you said, Tyson, this could be a grand slam for the Rockets down the line. I mean, they're just acquiring young talent.
But to be fair, we said that about Jabari Smith. We said it about Jalen Green. Pretty much every bouncy freak athlete that they've taken with question marks. We haven't seen what we need, but it's a lot of
1 year of Jabari Smith.
It's a lot of Paul Silas stuff too. So it's tough to, or Steven Silas, excuse me. It's tough to get too into it. They were playing AAU.
Yeah, they were. But his brother, Tyson, goes right after him to the Pistons. And this was something that we had, the Pistons, I mean, their general manager came out and said, we're not looking to bunt, man. We're not looking for singles. We're going for a grand slam. There's a chance this kid, Ausar Thompson, could be the best player in this draft. Like, his ceiling is maybe the highest besides Wembanyama, if you really look at it. 6'6", 7 foot, just like his twin brother Amen, but just really good athlete. Is a much more of a playmaker for himself, I think, right now than Amen is. Amen's a little bit more of a playmaker for others, sets you up and then can get his own a bit. Ausar is more of like, I'm going to go get mine. I'm a bucket getter. He's just extremely raw right now.
Well, he's like, he's 85% athletic as his brother. And that's kind of like the big differential. He's the better shooting twin, but that's not saying a ton, as we kind of just laid out. But his mechanics are better. So when you're watching him on film, it almost looks like that guy has the answers to the test. He just hasn't figured it out yet. Where the other one, with Amen, you're not totally sure it's ever going to get there. Dude, this break is going to be ridiculous. Cade Cunningham on one side, Jaden Ivey on the other, and Ausar Thompson coming down. Like, somebody's getting punched on every night. I don't know if this makes them better in the short term, like immediately, because he might have a rookie year where he scores 8 points a game, but he's going to have flashes on defense. He'll have some 25-point nights that make you really excited. But this is, to me, like, remember when the Timberwolves were spooky? But like,
yeah.
This feels like that. Although we finally get a full Cade Cunningham season with Jaden Ivey. Let's get that out of the way first before we start figuring out how everyone else fits in.
Yeah, I think defensively this makes him much better in the short term. Not sure how many minutes or if he's going to be a day one starter, but new head coach Monty Williams, Tyson, you're very familiar with him. He wants people to play defense and buy in. You're going to get that with Ausar Thompson. So I think this fits what they're building. It's
a good spot for him, given that Monty is the coach, because like typically in the modern NBA, like if you can't shoot, you can't play. Monty will let him play.
Orlando Magic take Anthony Black. I think this took some people by surprise, not me. I've been hearing that they're looking for somebody who's going to create and set up all these playmakers and all these scorers that they've assembled. And Anthony Black's going to be able to do that. He's 6'6", 6'8" wingspan. He's not a great athlete. So, I mean, he's not going to go out there and be like, yo, I need to go show off right now. He's going to be able to set up Paolo. Like, Paolo Banchero is not going to have the ball in his hand all the time now. He's going to be able to set up Franz Wagner. You know, Jalen Suggs, I actually think this helps him a lot out if he's actually going to slide into that starting role. And Tyson, if Markelle Fultz just doesn't blossom, you know, this is kind of a one-for-one replacement.
Yeah, but, like, the downside is he can't really shoot, right? And that's again,
the biggest thing.
That's kind of like the story of this draft class if you're not paying attention. Like, Gradey Dick was getting smoked in the top 10 just for being able to shoot. That's the kind of draft class this is. But, like, he's not super shifty. He's not super bouncy. Sometimes when you watch guys, you can just tell they're going to be in the NBA for, like, 10 years. And that's kind of the vibe that I get from Anthony Black. I think the low-end outcome is this is a guy that's a seventh man for 10 years in the NBA. And the high end is this guy's averaging 10 assists a game. He's going to immediately be, like, everybody's favorite teammate. When you watched him at Arkansas, it was, like, free buckets, basically, for anybody that was around the rim. He was finding you. He was giving you the ball. So, again, I know it sounds like a broken record, but all these bottom-of-the-lottery teams are just stupid athletic because they're taking stupid athletes. And this is somebody now who can pass the ball to most of those stupid athletes over in Orlando.
100%. And the other thing at Orlando, if you've been paying attention, they are huge now. Like, if you look at their roster, like we talked about the Nuggets and their size, like that's what the Magic are sneakily trying to do over there. Like, they are huge on that roster. And that's one thing. If you really look at it, the East doesn't have a lot of big teams everywhere. You know, it's a lot of smaller type of ball, you know, a lot of wings and kind of want to play in an open space. Orlando's kind of going the opposite direction. Like, we got versatile bigs and we got big wings and we have big guards now. I'm curious to see if this thing works because they're a bunch of young guys too, Tyson. If they can grow together, my goodness, this team could be scary. Like, we're talking about the Magic. Like, hey, if this clicks, they may be running the East for a little bit.
They got to learn to fight, man. That's one thing watching them. They got to learn. They got to learn to not roll over. But Anthony Black never did, and that's a good guy to have the ball in the hands all the time.
Biggest surprise of the draft to date right now was when the Indiana Pacers took Bilal Coulibaly, who from France. He was Victor Wembanyama's teammate. They actually traded this pick to the Wizards, so he will be playing for the Washington Wizards. And this, I mean, he's relatively unknown because, you know, Wembanyama gets all the attention. But he's 19 years old, 6'7", 7'2" wingspan, just got better and better as the international scouts were saying. Like, came in, didn't really see the floor, didn't really see a lot of minutes, and just kept improving, forced the coaching staff to play him. And just one of these kids who, like, man, we have no clue what his ceiling could be. He's just a worker and wants to grind and get better.
Yeah, this is, like, he's not the same player, but this is almost, I don't even want to say it, but, like, a lot. I mean, it's like Giannis vibes. Like, this guy comes out of nowhere. Nobody knows who he is. All of a sudden, before the draft starts shooting up boards. Obviously goes like twice as high as Giannis did in the actual draft. Dude, the guy can play. And that's kind of the thing with this class is there's so many specialists. There's not too many true, like, this guy's just a basketball player. And right now, he's a good basketball player with potential to grow in literally every single area. And don't pay attention to draft grades or anything on like this on that guy because he's going to Washington. We're not probably going to know how much he impacts winning for the first 2 years of his career. This is going to be a wait and see project, but Brad, we'll get into it more next week. I love what Washington's been able to pull off, to be honest. Like, when it started with the Bradley Beal trade, it was like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And now
right.
I really like what they're putting together.
Completely agree. I completely agree. And this is a perfect spot for a kid who needs to play. Like, he needs reps. Like, he's going to see the court. He's going to play. Like you said, we'll talk about it in more detail, but he's going to be able to see the floor, I believe. Like, the wings kind of packed. The guards are kind of packed. I think that they're going to try to get him rotational minutes and just like, hey, guys, let's go out there and just like see who can play. Let's try to grow. And this is a perfect spot for him to land. And I don't blame the Wizards at all for taking him here. Like, hey, this could be a home run. Like, what do we have to lose?
Well, if he's driving the bus in 3 years, this is a smash. And if
Exactly.
he's sitting next to the guy driving the bus in 3 years, you're also feeling pretty good about getting this guy. And it's almost one of those things NBA teams do this to us where like this was their secret, right? Like they're the only one. They were the ones that were reaching on this guy. They believed in him. And a lot of times it goes horribly, but I'm cheering for this kid, man. It's a cool story.
I'm cheering for this kid right here, Jarace Walker. So the Wizards took him at 8, obviously flipped him over to the Pacers. This is who the Pacers wanted all along in this draft, and it makes complete sense to me because the Pacers suck on defense. Like, and they got guys who can score: Chris Duarte, Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin. They have nobody who wants to do the dirty work and defend. This kid will do it, man. Jarace Walker coming over from Houston. If you're going to play for Kelvin Sampson, you better be a tough son of a bitch. And that's what this kid is. I mean, he's 6'7", 7'3" wingspan, great rebounder for his size, wants to play on defense, will defend, get in you, do the dirty work. And he's just a great teammate. Like if you heard the stories from draft that uses NIL money to help the walk-ons,
So that was
use
crazy.
the NIL money for other stuff. Like this is the type of kid that you want if you're the Pacers who've been looking to build a culture, you know, and it just hasn't quite clicked with the different people you brought in. Seems like you got somebody in Halliburton. Seems like Benedict Mathurin's a good guy as well to kind of have a culture to set around. And then you bring in him who's going to do the dirty work and grind. I'm rooting for him.
Well, this one sucked a little bit because I had Jarace Walker at 7 to the Pacers with bets. So just another right place, wrong time kind of deal here. But one thing you said, to play for Kelvin Sampson, you got to be tough. The other thing is you might not need to shoot free throws. Because when you look at this dude and you see 34.7 or 35% from three or whatever it is, you think like, okay, this might be a good free throw shooter or a 3-point shooter someday. He shoots 66% from the line, and that's a question mark for me. That makes my eyebrows go up a little bit. I don't think his mechanics are horrible, but like you said, dude, it's not often you can add a linebacker in the NBA, especially to a team that really needs one. Because for as much love as we give Scoot Henderson for kind of being a physical presence and freaky and stuff like that, Jarace Walker it's the same, dude. And like blocking shot, he'll be on the floor more this year than probably everybody else in Indiana combined.
The Jazz get Taylor Hendricks, one of my favorite players in this draft in terms of what a prospect is, man. I mean, he's big, long. He's that classic 3-and-D guy. He's from UCF. I actually watched a ton of UCF games this year. Really like their team. 6'8", 7'1" wingspan, about 19 and a half years old. He'll be 20 when the season starts. He's a good athlete, will defend, and he can shoot the rock. I think, and we talked about the Jazz are looking to rebuild. This is a good piece to start rebuilding behind.
Yeah, I think this, to me, opens up the door for some Lauri Markkanen rumors next year at the deadline. I know that's a little bit early, but like that's going to be clunky. A Hendricks, Markkanen, Walker Kessler, 3-4-5. Like if that's the way they want to run that, that's huge. And if the shooting comes like this, it would work. It'd be fine. But ideally, I think that you want Taylor Hendricks to be able to like guard 3 through 5 in the playoffs, which that's part of the reason I'm excited about this pick. Is Ainge shows up and we're all like making fun of it. This is a dramatic organizational shift from giving Rudy Gobert $1 billion to get played off the court to saying like, okay, we're going to replace the shot blocking with the second round guy. And then we're going to go try to find somebody that can genuinely play 40 minutes in an NBA playoff game. Maybe at like 22, 23 years old. Like this dude toucher on the rim is ridiculous.
This is, I think, a diamond in the rough prospect. Now, obviously, you know, there were rumors that he was going to go as high as 6. So how diamond in the rough is he? I just know from UCF, you know, first round draft pick from that school. I watched him. I was like, this kid looks like an NBA player when I was watching UCF last year. I think he's going to be able to impact right away. Now, we already have, Tyson, some Colin Sexton rumors for the Jazz. We'll see how those matriculate and everything like that. I actually think this is a good pairing with Markkanen, though. Because Markkanen can space the floor, Hendricks is going to be able to space the floor as well. And I think he's actually going to allow Markkanen to play on a weaker player because of his defense.
But then, like, to me, that just gets like a little bit like with Walker Kessler out there as well, because there will be times, and maybe that's the plan. Maybe I'm not seeing what they're seeing, but it seems like you could get punished pretty heavily by athletic 4s and 5s if that's going to be your 4-5 line there.
Now, this felt like a reach or a surprise. At 10, the Mavericks select Cason Wallace from Kentucky and then trade him to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I I see what the Thunder are doing here. This felt high to me, but obviously, they had a priority that they wanted to target and a position that they wanted to target. And, they decided that this is where they wanted to go. I mean, what did you think about this pick?
I'm kind of to the point with the Oklahoma City Thunder where if they really like a guy, I'm just believing that they're going to get it right because they seem to be getting it right lately. On offense, like you don't truly know what you're going to get, but I think that's kind of just what happens when you draft a Kentucky guard. Like you're not totally sure if you're going to get like Devin Booker or if you're going to get maybe Eric Bledsoe or something like that if you want to go a little bit farther back. But dude, he's just going to come out and compete. And I think like truly we all kind of want the Thunder to be taking that next step. This feels to me more like we just got to keep setting the tone every single day because him and Lou Dort and like the Williams twins and all that stuff that they have going on over there, they're just going to have like 4 guys on the court at all times that want to take your lunch money.
I think this helps too. You don't have to have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander handle the ball all the time. Like if Wallace is going to run the second unit, what's the fall off? He's still setting up guys. He's a good defender as well. I think that's where he's actually going to have this most value immediately when it comes into plays is on the defensive end, just because you have people who are established on the Thunder who can get their own shots and hit it. But if he grows into, I don't know, maybe even the starting 2, I don't know, like where Dort's going to get valued eventually by the time Wallace is ready, like this could be a good pick for him. So clearly the Thunder had an idea of what they wanted to attack in this draft. And they're like, we don't care. Like, this is our guy. We're going to take him.
And if you like are going on other point guards, it was really like, or guards, it's like him or Bufkin or like Hood Schifino. You're kind of splitting hairs there. Like everybody's got their problems.
This is the biggest shock to me in the first round. Jett Howard selected by the Magic at 11 with plenty of other players on the board. Now, we thought Gradey Dick was going to go here because it was clear that the Magic were going to target shooting. Like we all knew, everybody knew it was the worst secret in the world that the Magic were like, hey, we need some shooting on our offense because that's really going to help us out. So they go with Jett Howard. Now, Jett Howard can shoot. Like, he's a good shooter. The problem is he can't defend to save his life. Like, he's not a good defender at all. And Gradey Dick, I think he's a better athlete than Jett Howard. And maybe that goes contrary to the comps here, but I mean, Jett Howard is a shooter. So maybe if you're looking for a pigeonholed guy, sure. But at the same time, Tyson, at 11, ooh-wee.
I mean, this feels like Cam Johnson all over again, where maybe we're overreacting and this dude just comes out and shoots 45%. But he's different, though. Like, he's skinny. He's not very big. He can't really defend. He doesn't even – he looks comfortable with the ball in his hands, I guess is the way I'll say that. Instead of, like, he doesn't look he's not going to be, again, driving the bus on offense. He's not going to be the trigger guy or anything like that. This seems very high to me to take a shooter, especially like we don't know what was going on with Cam Whitmore, but if you wanted shooting and more, that's probably the way you go. If you just wanted shooting, then like Jordan Hawkins didn't go too far from here, like 3 picks afterwards. Gradey Dick goes 2 picks afterwards. Both, to me, probably better shooters in the NBA as far as the translation is going to go. This is a head scratcher, dude. I thought this was the biggest reach of the night. I won't say worst pick, but
yeah, I biggest reach. I think that's fair because I mean he could come in and if all he has to do is just knock down shots. I mean, then you're looking at a kid who's 6'8". If he does eventually get better on defense, okay, we understand it. He also has the pedigree. Like his dad's Juwan Howard. He's got that basketball IQ. Like he's not a bad player. So I don't want to be going out and saying that. I just was surprised that at 11 the Magic went this route with so many other players on the board.
Have you ever seen a smaller 6'8" human being in your life?
I think it's just because he's so slight.
Dude, he is tiny. He looks tiny.
Yeah. So, that was definitely interesting. Now, this was a great pick, in my opinion, here, Tyson. So, the Thunder and the Mavs, they do their flop, but the Mavs get Dereck Lively II from Duke, just 7 foot, was the number 1 high school player in the country coming out last year. Didn't quite necessarily show it at Duke, but he's 7'1", 7'7" wingspan. Like he's huge, an elite shot blocker on defense. Where were the Mavs horrible last year? Shot blocking. Like it was brutal. Their entire defense was horrible. And if all he's got to do is kind of like Walker Kessler last year, hey, just rebound and block shots, and then we'll figure out the rest on offense. Like that's all you have to do before you kind of grow into your game. Ooh, man, Tyson, this could be one of the best picks of the first round.
Did the Mavericks easily make the playoffs last year if they have Clint Capella and they might win a round in the playoffs last year if they have Clint Capella. Dereck Lively can be more than Clint Capella. When if you're out there and you don't know who he is, you look up his stats, you're going to be so unimpressed. He's taking 3 shots a game because he's running to the rim, he's catching lobs, he's dunking the ball, and then he's swatting, he's jumping at everything. He's swatting most things. I think that's something he's going to have to get a little better at. Like, the discipline's good in the ACC, but when Joel Embiid is a guy with the rock looking to go to the foul line, I think he's going to struggle with that. But like, he's kind of an underrated passer for a big too, and I think that's a huge deal because like Dallas has for the better part of the last 6 seasons just kind of had black holes when you throw the ball inside. Like, it doesn't come back out, and if it does, it's off the rim or somebody's swatting it. So I think Dereck Lively here, this is the best fit to me in the NBA draft.
Yeah, like Mavs, hey, this is our need. Let's go get the best guy for it.
And they got Rashawn Holmes today.
Yeah, they did. So, yeah, a bunch of little things going on in the NBA, not just the draft, which, like Tyson said, we'll touch on all that next week. Don't you guys worry. We got you covered. The Raptors get Gradey Dick, who fell, pretty far, in my opinion, in terms of just like where he was at. Like we thought potentially a top 10 pick, shooting was a premium just because the prospects in this class couldn't really shoot. And then he falls. Now, the Magic at 11, okay, he fell 2 spots. You were never going to be taken once the Mavs kind of passed up there. But the Raptors, with Scotty Barnes, who's learning how to shoot a little bit, can create more space for Barnes. And Pascal Siakam, like, I think this is a good pick for the Raptors, who are looking to kind of build a new foundation away from what Nick Nurse was doing.
It's also important because it doesn't pigeonhole them to one approach going forward, because no matter what way you want to go, you got to shoot the ball. And this is a dude like 40% on 83 threes last year, I think, 36 games. Great free throw shooter as well. But dude, he's going to get picked on defense until he can show otherwise, because this isn't Christian Brown. Gradey Dick's a really good cutter as well. Actually, I think he's underrated, like finishing and secondary creation. But it's just going to be one of those things where he's probably going to get mercilessly hunted for the most part while he's on the court until he proves that he can guard somebody. I'm not super confident he can guard anybody. And that's kind of the rub here. He is not strong enough at this point in his career to play with even most threes in the NBA. God forbid he gets switched onto a Zion Williamson or Giannis Antetokounmpo, because that's free.
He's a much better athlete than people think. Like, if you watch his highlights, he's finishing at the rim, he's throwing down dunks, and he's throwing them over people sometimes.
It's all straightforward.
It's all linear. Yeah, it's linear. I mean, he's a shooter, right? But like, he can slash, he can create off the dribble. I think he's actually a better defender than people kind of like pigeonhole him into. And defending at the Big 12 level is different than defending at the NBA level. But if you're got to defend, you got to defend in college. That's a good first step. Unlike, Jett Howard, who we're talking about, like, you just didn't defend at all last year. But I do think he will probably get hunted, Tyson. I think that people will kind of be like, all right, well, we didn't really expect him to be as good of a defender as we're running into, because we just thought he was going to be a bad defender. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Like, I actually think he's going to show, hey, I'm actually an okay defender.
What did you think of the suit?
Well, he said it was an homage to Dorothy from Kansas, which I got after the fact. But when I saw it, I'm like, yo, what is this?
I mean, like, that dude's getting roasted for a while in the locker room. There's no way around it.
His picture on draft night is going to be with that suit for eternity.
Oh, it was amazing. Like, his dad sitting next to him, calling him a dog. He's dressed like a fucking
Christmas ornament.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Last pick of the lottery, the Pelicans select Jordan Hawkins from UConn. Actually, this is what they are looking for: shooting on the perimeter. A guy who, kind of like a Rip Hamilton type, man. Just the way he comes off screens, can create for himself, is bouncy. I think maybe a little bit high, Tyson. I'm not going to lie here, but it fits what the Pelicans were looking for.
Nobody rips nets like this dude. It's just pure. That's the thing. Maybe Gradey Dick's a better like shooter, but nobody's like more creative with their shots, I don't think, in this draft than Jordan Hawkins. Like, this is a day one walk in 25 feet. I'm putting it up. That's what I do. The ball goes in the bottom of the hoop. Bobby Hurley said it. He's tougher than people give him credit for. A lot of people, I think 14 was always seen as high kind of in his mock mock range, but we talked about it before the draft. The NBA mock drafts are like historically so bad. Like nobody ever knows anything that these guys are thinking. The board breaks weird every year, but this is interesting because he's not going to offer a ton on defense either. And I think when you're looking at the New Orleans Pelicans, you look at their guards and you go, okay, we need some, like, that's why Scoot Henderson made sense. If New Orleans was going to move on from Zion Williamson, like a bunch of dogs in the wings, in the bigs, but like CJ McCollum, the best guard defender?
No, Alvarado, but when he's healthy,
does
he
count?
Yeah, he got minutes.
I mean,
he got minutes.
Don't let Instagram fool you, dude.
No, dude, he was good last year. He was good last year,
man. He's a new Pat Bev.
No, he's actually a good defender.
Look, I'm a Suns guy. I'm never gonna like him. That's just kind of the way this is gonna work. But if Jordan Hawkins fills out his frame, like this is a perennial 20-point a game scorer.
Yeah, I mean, he's great coming off screens. You know, he's going to be able to space the floor. It's not just going to be McCollum and Trey Murphy. Like, dude, like if Hawkins can actually play, like Murphy, McCollum, and Hawkins, like that's a good shooting team. And all of a sudden, you're looking at much more space for Brandon Ingram to operate. If Zion Williamson's still there, much more space for him. I don't know about their direction going forward with Jonas Valanciunas, but again, that's more space for him, and he's a good passer. So
yeah.
All of a sudden, you know, you kind of see what the Pelicans are doing here. And I'm interested to see how they kind of handle this whole Zion situation, if they're actually looking to move on from her or not. But I think this was a good pick, probably high in terms of it. But like we just talked about, you know, they had a need just like the Thunder, and they addressed that here. Okay, let's get into other notable first round selections as we just finished up with the lottery picks. I mean, we got to start with Cam Whitmore, right? I mean, this is a guy who is mocked to go number 4 at his peak to the Rockets, and he falls to 20.
And I mean, he goes to Houston, and that if this is actual character concerns, this is the worst place in the NBA for this dude to end up. So I hope that's not what it is, because he's fun to watch, and he's again, we talked about him a little bit last week. I just don't think people were. What's the Shaq quote? I apologize, I wasn't familiar with your game.
Yeah,
I thought like anywhere from 9 to 12 was kind of like the absolute back end, because I thought the Jazz were going to make a play and try to get Cam Whitmore, because the potential is there. But again, it's really hard to judge because the NBA is different, where Brandon Miller just goes number 2 overall with character concerns. But Cam Whitmore takes some interviews and he is 20 instead of 9. Maybe we were overestimating like how well he was smashing it. Maybe his agent was putting out some pretty good smoke screens. If this works, this is the best draft class of anybody in the NBA with what the Rockets were able to pull off tonight. If it doesn't work, who gives a shit? And that's kind of the important part. When you're picking at 20 and you're a perennial bottom 4 team, you have permission to stop the slide. Whereas if Miami takes him at 18, like we're thinking to ourselves, oh, the Heat will fix him. But sometimes guys don't get fixed. And so if this is a character concern thing, and like maybe everybody else was wrong, and that's the goal if you're Houston, because this dude could come in like immediately and start taking minutes from some guys that truly shouldn't have the ball in their hands as much as they do for the Houston Rockets.
Well, I'm reading it's more medical concerns and character. Okay. So I think that does bode well. Now, again, I did hear as well, or read that, you know, there were some interview issues. So whatever that means, I'm not sure. Maybe he just didn't get along with the guys he was communicating with. Maybe they just didn't quite mesh, whatever the case may be. I'm reading the slides more so medical concerns about his leg. And that could be more problematic almost, Tyson, than a character concern in a way. You know, like if it's bad enough to the point where teams are like, hey, man, I don't know if we should take a risk on him at freaking 12. And we're talking about this guy like he's the number 5, number 7 pick. Woo-wee. I mean, but like you said, in terms of what he is as a prospect, he's a competitor. He can score. He's an athlete. Like he's a highlight, man. Like we're talking about like the Rockets are going to be a freaking slam ball team with the Thompson kid, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, the Cam Whitmore. Like they got some guys on that team. And so if he hits, holy smokes. And if he doesn't, like you said, hey, we're good on the wing.
Well, Amon Thompson, like, can't shoot. Fantastic playmaker. Cam Whitmore can't really play make. Great shooter. So they kind of mitigate each other's weaknesses a little bit there. Brad, the most notable first-round pick, and I can't believe that you didn't lead with this. This was like, I don't know how we weren't betting this. This is the most straightforward pick in the history of the NBA draft. Jaime Hawkins to the Miami Heat at 18 just makes a ridiculous amount of sense. Like, forget the basketball sense part of it and everything else. If you watch this dude at all at UCLA, you knew he was going to find his way to play for the Miami Heat, Pat Riley, and Eric Spoelstra at some point. If this dude's good, like, he's going to be a little bit better than he is right now. Like, his ceiling isn't that of a Cam Whitmore or that of who went right above him, Jalen Hood-Schifino, right? Went 17.
Yep.
And then the Santa Clara dude went 19, I think.
Yep. Brandon, Eric, they call him AirPods, Podziemski.
So there's like high ceiling kind of guy, high ceiling. The Heat don't need somebody to bust open a ceiling. They need somebody to come in, fill a role, and play winning basketball. Nobody does that in this draft like Jaime Hawkins. And we're talking about this dude like he's a bum. He's the Pac-12 player of the year. He just beat the brakes off of everybody else's favorite player from these Pac-12 schools for the last handful of years. I don't give a shit that he's 22. He's going to come in. He's going to work. He's going to fit right in. And he will be playing minutes next year in the NBA playoffs.
I'm glad he went this high too, because there are guys who have age in college basketball that I think get over or underdrafted because they're like, well, they're 22. If the dude can play and he fits a role, you should draft him. And I think that's what the Heat, and we always talk about like how they find these undrafted free agents, because they're like, we know that guy will fit in our system. We know that guy's going to fit in our culture. And it's like, you know, should some of these guys have been undrafted? I don't know. Like when we talk about second round picks or whatever, like you can't tell. Like Max Strus was good at DePaul.
Yeah,
like he was a good player. Like, is he really an undrafted player where some of these guys are going in the second round? I don't know. But Jaime Hawkins, you know, this is a good pick for him. I completely agree. He's going to fit from day one. Another one for me, Tyson, Keontae George went 16 to the Utah Jazz. You know, we're talking about this guy during the season like he's a top 5 pick. And then he falls out of the lottery. And this dude's a good scorer. I think there are concerns about his defense, but the talent is there, man. Like he can pull up, he can ball handle. You know, he's a scorer, 6'4", you know, long wingspan. I think the main thing is just his defense, and that's a concern.
So I'm going to hit you with the most Brad quote of all time. The dude turns the ball over more than he gets assists to teammates. Yeah, that's like your true. Number one thing when it comes to these guys. And this is a bucket getter, but he's not an efficient bucket getter. At this point in his career, he's a chucker. Shot 37% from the field. He shot 33% from three. He turns the ball over more than he makes it. But somehow, and I'm guilty of this too, like when I watch this dude, I'm in a trance. Like I'm not even noticing that he's 4 for 12 or whatever to start the game because it's pure and he looks the part, right? And I think that's kind of important in projecting like how these things go. Is he ever going to be a 50, 40, 90 guy? Probably not. But if Utah can rein him in and almost turn him into a microwave off the bench and just be like, dude, you got 6 minutes here. Go crazy. This could be pretty profitable. I was surprised that he went this high, to be honest.
Oh, man. I mean, hearing the slide, I think it did shock me a bit that he went in terms of where he was at this low. But I think when I was going through the draft, I was looking at some of these guys fall, and I'm like, okay, 16, I think that's probably a reasonable place for Keontae George at the end of the day. Any other big notables for you in outside of the lottery in the first round?
Well, I thought like what the Nets did at 21 and 22, getting Whitehead and Noah Clowney. Like I like that.
Me too.
None of these are going to be like all that exciting as you kind of get lower in the draft because this isn't a Michael Porter Jr. year where we're all like excited about a guy that we haven't seen play in a handful of years and all this stuff. The craziest part of the draft to me, Brad, was like, is this the beginning? We say it all the time, but at a certain point when all these G League and overseas guys and everything consistently start going, like they were 4 of the top 5. They dominated the top 10. NIL money's great, but these guys are getting paid more in the long run because of the path that they're taking. And so if you love college basketball, we've talked about this before too. I actually think it makes it better because I think we're getting closer and closer to the end of like one and dones. It's now you have to be like special. Whereas 10 years ago, you could just go to Kentucky. And what was the backup center to DeMarcus Cousins?
Oh, man. I can't remember now.
I can't either. And I don't want to shit on the guy, but that dude couldn't play at all. and he comes
Oh,
out of
Willie
the,
Cauley-Stein?
no,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. But
yeah, it'll come to us.
Yeah, like if there was a point in time where if you were 19 years old and you were a top 10 prospect, you were probably going in the first round. And now we're kind of getting to the point where, like, Murray scored 0 points a game freshman year, 2 points a game sophomore year, 20 points a game junior year, plays his way into the first round. I think that might be a more traditional path for college players going forward.
I just want to say, before we move to our biggest surprises, notable first rounder. I just saying this now. Nick Smith Jr. selected by the Hornets, and this kid is a freshman at Arkansas. Really good athlete, didn't show, or not a really good athlete, really good scorer, didn't show it necessarily at Arkansas. Got hurt, some weird stuff, but his high school stuff is ridiculous, man.
He deserved to go in the first round.
He did. He's a good player. I'm curious to see what he can do at the next level. He didn't quite show an athleticism that many thought he had in high school. So we'll see. But I mean, learning from LaMelo, going to be able to play for the Hornets, I mean, it's not like LaMelo is like the twitchiest guy. Like he can get by you, but it's not like you're like, whoa, that guy's the best athlete in the floor.
That just made me laugh because like LaMelo is 23 years old or whatever. And he's like, that's how young the Hornets are.
I mean, that's like crazy in this day and age.
Like
now.
LaMelo is the vet now over in Charlotte. That's crazy.
All right, let's get to the biggest surprises for you, Tyson.
Let's
get
into it, dude. It's Jett Howard.
Whitmore.
It's Jett Howard.
Well, we mentioned that. Like we mentioned Whitmore, we mentioned Howard. Like those are easily the biggest ones, right?
That was ridiculous. I mean, there was the lack of like substance to a lot of these trades was a little bit surprising. It was a lot of in the NFL, this will happen where like the Philadelphia Eagles this year went up to number 9 for Jalen Carter for a 4th round pick. But this was all like swapping seconds or like throwing cash at people to move up in the draft, which is typically how this thing goes. But the biggest surprise for me of the night, I guess, Brad, is like ESPN and ABC still have no idea how to put on the NBA draft. It is the worst coverage of any primetime sporting event. Like you get the entire Thursday night to yourself. Nothing else is on TV. And we get, I'm forgetting her name, but she teaches JJ Redick how to shoot a pull-up jump shot. Like before Victor Wembanyama goes, like we have other things to talk about.
Well, here's the problem too. It takes so long. Like I get it. You invite all these kids to the draft room and you want it to be a big night. First of all, it shouldn't be 5 minutes. Like these guys already know who they're taking. Yeah. Like it should be 3 minutes and let's move on. And the second thing that was surprising me, I just can't believe the NBA continues to botch their own product. Like with these trades, like we know who's like these trades are happening in real time. Like, oh, it has to be approved by the league office. The NFL's figured it out. Like when it's a trade that happens, okay, team hat, new, go, let's go. Here it is. Like it's insane to me that we continue to do this, and it's just a joke of a product. Like these guys are putting on one hat, they're taking it off. They're like, oh, you actually know you're on the Pacers? Like, no, I didn't know that. I was on the stage. Like yeah, you should already know.
Well, between Shams tweeting out every pick 3 seconds before Adam Silver, which is hilarious because I think
3 minutes because they move so slow.
That's true, which I didn't think was allowed anymore. I mentioned that this might be like the shifting of the G League and all that stuff. This might be the shifting to smaller haircuts, dude, because none of these dudes could put their hat on their head like comfortably. Maybe the NBA needs to get bigger hats or something. Like this was hilarious.
It was
Dereck Lively putting his hat on. It was like, what did you think was going to happen?
Anthony Black putting his on that. Dude, it looked like Hey Arnold. Like
yeah,
exactly. That mini hat.
Yeah. Got a bunch of sideshow bobs or something.
Other than that, though, with Whitmore and Jett Howard, I don't think there was crazy surprises. Like it just shocked us again that ESPN continues to be horrible on this coverage, and the NBA continues to make their own product bad.
Well, I did just see this come through. I guess this must have happened right after we hopped on. Really, really glad to see Marcus Sasser go in the first round. I think that is a Monty Williams player. He goes to the Pistons at 25. We're recording right now. I haven't checked my phone. For all I know, that pick's been sent somewhere. But
no, that's the right pick. Yep.
This dude deserves to be a first-round NBA. Like, if you follow college ball at all, you've known about Marcus Sasser for a minute. I have no idea how he's going to be in the NBA, but sometimes you just root for guys, and he's one of mine.
Oh, another one here, too. So the Nuggets trade into the first-round pick with the Pacers. They select Julian Strawther with their number 29 pick from Gonzaga with an idea that Bruce Brown, he could leave in free agency. Julian Strawther is a good player. And also shout out Penn State with the 32nd pick, the Nuggets select Jalen Pickett out of my alma mater. So let's go, baby. We got a draft pick. First time a Penn State basketball player has been drafted since 2018. How about that?
Well, I did want to point out, I said that Jett Howard was the smallest 6'8" person I've ever seen. I think Jalen Pickett is the biggest like 6'2" guard I've ever seen in my life. This dude, he looks like Paul Pierce or something. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like once you get down to this point in the draft, take your pick. I didn't see that Julian Strawther thing till right now. This is perfect. Some people aren't going to get the fit. His weaknesses are kind of tough to like swallow. He's probably not even going to have to play right away. This doesn't, to me, mean Bruce Brown's not coming back. This just means they got a guy that we keep saying best shooter, but he's up there. Like he's probably a top 5 shooter in this draft, and top 5 again is being conservative. Probably not plug and play like right away, but as close as you can really get at 25.
He could Christian Brown
or
this
29,
thing,
exactly.
Like he could Christian Brown this thing for him too. Like he's an older guy, knows how to play the game, and if you just stand in the corner and Jokic is finding you, I can knock down some shots.
And there's only so many places in the NBA where straight line drives and throwing the ball to the corner works over and over and over again, and Denver is one of those places, and that's essentially how Gonzaga plays basketball.
Exactly. Okay, let's close. We've gone long. We appreciate you guys listening. You know, we love the NBA draft. You know, this is great coverage. Honestly, like we kind of shit on the broadcast. It's always a good time watching the draft, though. Like it drags on, but I always have a good time.
Dude, I don't know. Oh, Andre Jackson just went to the Bucks. Never mind. Best pick in the draft. Boom, boom.
In the second round, right?
That's over. Yeah. 36.
He went to the Bucks? Oh, yeah. Okay. It says Magic on my thing. So, again, come on, NBA. What a ridiculous thing. So, anything you want to close with before we get out of here?
Start watching G League games. I think if you're not doing that, watching Overtime Elite stuff, it's really hard to kind of know more about these prospects. Like some guys like Scoot Henderson and Jalen Green, you're going to know about for a year. Scoot for 2 years. But it certainly helps in the betting market. And I think that was the main takeaway from today is like these odds movement. I was throwing up. It was roller coasters.
In the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. We really appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far, go ahead and give us a like on YouTube. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, rate us. We had a listener ask us a question last week. So go ahead, and if you have any questions, you can put a 5-star in, ask us a question. We'll answer it on the show. Or you can always contact us on our social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. It's all the same at ISWIS_pod. Like Tyson said, we'll be back. The NBA is just getting started, baby. Like, we're going to have a crazy offseason. We're going to break down all these trades. We're going to talk about anything that happens over the weekend as well. So we hope you all enjoy your weekend. We'll be back next week with a little bit more NBA talk, some football as well. Tyson and I are ready. We'll speak to you guys then. Peace.